Kabuto is one of the three main antagonists of the final arc of Naruto, the War Arc. And this is a big mistake, he shouldn't have been that. You see, Kabuto has never been terribly relevant for the Naruto story. He was never in the forefront of the events happening in the story, he was always supporting Orochimaru. And I know that this is kind of the point, the pupil rising above the master and trying to overtake him in power and accomplishments and all that. He has an inferiority complex towards Orochimaru. He feels as though he is not worthy and trying to prove himself during the War Arc, trying to surpass him. But this doesn't work in the story. Kabuto is by far the worst antagonist in the War Arc when it comes to the big three, Obito, Madara, and Kabuto, and I don't like Obito. And of course, he is way better than Kaguya because she is not even a character, she's a turd. But let me explain to you why Kabuto shouldn't have been a main antagonist in the War Arc. Everything starts in Naruto Part 1 when Kabuto was established as a spy for Orochimaru. He was gathering information on Sasuke and Naruto during the Forest of Death, and then, after a couple of arcs, he revealed himself as a spy during first search for Tsunade arc. Now, Kabuto began as a mentor figure almost for Naruto. He was a very pleasant person to be around. Of course, he was playing his part, but then when the search for Tsunade arc comes, he just turns into a complete jerk, berating Naruto for him being weak, this 12-year-old boy for him having no talent, while Kabuto is a grown man. He doesn't have to do that, that kind of feels a little weird. But of course, this is all to hype up Naruto's first Rasengan, because when Naruto hits Kabuto with that, it's a very hype moment because we're like, yes, hit that idiot, come on! And it's amazing. Kabuto served his purpose as a character very well in that arc. The purpose has always served, being an Orochimaru lackey and moving the plot forward when he needs to. Now bear in mind, we don't know anything about his backstory essentially, just very vague facts that he was a spy, he was found in a bridge when everyone died and he was alive, so we didn't know exactly what this guy was about. And he remained Orochimaru's lackey, he was always with him in the hideout, treating Orochimaru and doing all that good stuff. But you can say that his most interesting feat in terms of strength is his fight against Tsunade in Part 1. Now, of course, that Tsunade was very heavily nerfed. She was rusty and then she was afraid of blood. She wasn't fighting at her best by any means. But Kabuto did manage to defeat her. And I know they throw this around a lot, that Kabuto is around Kakashi's level. And that's supposed to be a thing because Kishimoto's really trying to hammer that down. Yeah, this guy is about Kakashi's level. They even have a very brief encounter when Kabuto goes and tries to kill Sasuke in the hospital, and Kabuto manages to get away from Kakashi using that weird substitution jutsu. So yeah, of course they're relative, but I don't buy it for any second that Part 1 Kakashi wouldn't demolish Kabuto in a one-on-one fight. There's just absolutely no way that Kabuto's gonna do anything to Kakashi. He has a couple of genjutsus that Kakashi can just break out of, and then Kabuto can use the scalpels to try and hit people, but Kakashi would destroy Kabuto because Kakashi has the Raikiri, he has a Sharingan, he has 1,000 jutsus. Maybe he has less chakra than Kabuto, but it's kind of implied that Kabuto doesn't have a lot of chakra anyway because his chakra ended before he could heal himself from the Rasengan, and he didn't really use a lot of chakra in that day. He just fought Tsunade for a couple of minutes using the scalpels, and he ran out of chakra after getting hit by the Rasengan. He did summon Manda afterwards, which was pretty impressive to be honest, but still, I simply don't buy that this character is more powerful than Kakashi, which is supposed to be a staple of strength in this series by that point. It doesn't feel intimidating or threatening. His abilities are kinda lackluster, and this is not really a complaint here, no. He's not a major character, he doesn't have to have amazingly complex abilities. The character did just fine for what he had to do. When we get to Naruto Shippuden, Kabuto continues to do what he did in the story. He was still Orochimaru's spy. We find out he used to work for Sasori being under his mind control, and then Orochimaru broke the mind control, but Kabuto chose to follow Orochimaru anyway because he agreed with what Orochimaru was doing. A little bit of extra characterization to Kabuto here, which is good. Kabuto doesn't really fight all that much in the Tenchi Bridge arc. He does have the fight against Yamato, Sakura, and Naruto, which he loses. He gets captured. He was at the mercy of Team Kakashi there, but they just decide to spare him and leave Yamato's clone to guard Kabuto because that would obviously work, ha! No, he escapes easily. But we can see here that Kabuto is nowhere near the top tiers in the verse. Not even Kakashi in part 1, because he gets defeated kind of easily by Team Kakashi there, and Kakashi wasn't present, by the way, it was Yamato. If you compare that to how Sasuke did against him, I mean, Sasuke is just so much more powerful, and Kakashi himself got so much more powerful as well in Naruto Shippuden. He has Kamui, he has much more stamina, he has more jutsus, he is faster, stronger, and all that. Kabuto seems to be a little bit stronger at most, but you can't even tell. He does have that long distance healing he used on Sakura when she got hit by the Four Tails, but that's pretty much what he does. His abilities are much more interesting when used not in combat, such as when he fakes a corpse of Sai to spook Team Kakashi out when they're pursuing them into Orochimaru's hideout. But there's nothing too noteworthy about Kabuto. His jutsus are not terribly flashy or interesting, his backstory doesn't really exist. His character, I mean, he's not bad, but he's not really that relevant or interesting. And most importantly, he doesn't feel threatening at all. And yeah, you can argue this is because he is a spy and he doesn't need to stand out, but the role he takes on during the War Arc is not really of a spy, it's of a mastermind, and also a powerful combatant, but that never feels like it, because he simply doesn't have that threatening presence. You can take much weaker characters that feel way more intimidating than Kabuto and more worthy of being major antagonists, such as the characters in the Sound 4. They all feel threatening, especially when they use the second stage of the curse mark, and yes, Kabuto would demolish any of them any day of the week, but their sheer presence on screen is much more formidable. A couple of arcs later, Orochimaru is killed by Sasuke, and that sparks a change in Kabuto because he doesn't have a direction. He was always served to Orochimaru and he doesn't know what to do without him, which is an interesting way to take the character, though I would argue people weren't terribly excited about what Kabuto was going to do when Orochimaru was dead because people weren't just very invested in him. We wanted to know what Sasuke was going to do, we wanted to know what Naruto and Jiraiya were going to do about it, but Kabuto didn't care very much. She was there, okay. And then Kabuto decides that if Orochimaru doesn't exist, he must become Orochimaru himself, because that's the only way to feel the void in his heart. He implants Orochimaru's cells into him, and they begin to consume his body, overtaking him, transforming his chakra. Now, it was never really established that Orochimaru's cells work like Hashirama cells. They're so powerful, they're infectious. Because if you compare Orochimaru to Hashirama, Orochimaru is just a billion times weaker. Like, it makes sense for Hashirama to have that type of cells because he is just a complete beast. But Orochimaru isn't that strong if you compare it to the top tiers in the verse. Now, you could argue, yeah, sure, maybe his cells are different because he made so many experiments on himself that they just have that property. But anyway, Kabuto then gives a book about the Akatsuki members to Naruto, and that's pretty much the last time he appears for a while in the story. We see that he is half consumed by the Orochimaru cells, and that's what we know about him. Yeah, he is undergoing transformation. And after the pain arc, he kind of transforms into that Orochimaru-esque creature that is the War Arc Kabuto character. He has white scales all over his body, and he knows Orochimaru's jutsus. And it just feels wrong. He feels like a very cheap imposter. And yes, this is supposed to be the character. Yeah, he is not supposed to be there. He's trying to put himself up to Orochimaru's standards, even though he is not Orochimaru and he should be trying to do something by his own merit. But it doesn't make for a very interesting story. He is an extremely important villain that brings the Edo Tensei into the fight, which is a major part of the War Arc. But I didn't feel scared by him in the War Arc at any moment. I remember reading the manga for the first time when it was coming out, and the War Arc was raging. Obito, or Masked Man, was fighting Kakashi, Naruto B, and Guy. Madara was fighting the 5 Kage, and Sasuke and Itachi were fighting Kabuto. And I remember feeling so much fear for the main characters during the Obito and the Madara fights, but I wasn't feeling that at all when Kabuto was involved, because I knew he was just a pushover. He was not going to do anything harmful to Itachi or Sasuke. He was not going to succeed. That was kind of a prerequisite of the character. That was his arc, and that's just not very compelling. Also, the way he got there as a very powerful character in the War Arc was really rushed. He just got consumed by the Orochimaru cells, and apparently he knew every single Orochimaru jutsu. Everything Orochimaru couldn't accomplish during his very long life. He was 53 years old in Naruto Shippuden, Kabuto was like 20. Kabuto did in a very short span of time, less than a year, between when he got the Orochimaru cells and the War Arc. He learned everything Orochimaru ever wanted. He mastered the Edo Tensei, making the Edo Tensei bodies almost as powerful as their living counterparts. He mastered Sage Mode, something Orochimaru tried to do his entire life, but Kabuto only needed a year. Kabuto literally became stronger than Orochimaru ever was. Now, is this inherently a flaw in the story? No. It's interesting when pupils surpass their masters. It happened with Naruto, with Sasuke, with Sakura, but they earned it. I mean, you can argue Sakura didn't earn it because she was kind of glossed over during the story, but Kabuto definitely didn't earn anything. He just implanted himself with Orochimaru cells and he became more powerful than Orochimaru. That doesn't make sense at all. It's the same thing as though I implanted Hashirama cells in myself and I just became stronger than Hashirama himself. Now, maybe if you were already at Hashirama's level, that will be possible because the cells will just give you that extra boost you needed, but the difference in power between Orochimaru and Kabuto was so huge, Orochimaru's cells shouldn't give him strength enough to surpass Orochimaru. And that's another problem. We do not see Kabuto getting stronger. We just see him kind of consumed by Orochimaru's cells, and then he is completely consumed, and apparently he's a god now because he knows every single jutsu Orochimaru ever wanted to learn and master, and he is just controlling a billion Edo Tenseis. He has Sage Mode. He can control the fluids inside of his body. He can use the bodies of every single Sound 4 member and Kimimaro as well. He can control the environment with his Sage Mode, and he can also use the snakes Orochimaru was using. He can use the snake substitution as well. He's just a powerhouse, and we never see how he got that. It feels unearned. And it doesn't help at all that Kabuto is just a character that doesn't impose any threat to you when you're reading the story. He doesn't feel intimidating whatsoever. Do you remember watching or reading Naruto for the first time in the Forest of Death when Orochimaru showed up and fought against Naruto and Sasuke? That was absolutely terrifying, and that Orochimaru is way weaker than War Kabuto, but that doesn't matter. Strength is not the point here. The point is the presence of the character on screen or on page. Orochimaru feels as though he's a force of nature, something you cannot fight against. So powerful, it's useless to even try anything against him. So that's when Sasuke decided to actually fight against Orochimaru. That was such a powerful moment. Remember, Sasuke was afraid to move in the fight because of Orochimaru's presence. And now we get just Kabuto here. He is not very intimidating, man. Look at the other War Arc antagonist. Look at Obito with his mask. He was very scary, especially when he pulled off all the tail beasts to fight against Guy, Kakashi, Naruto, and B. I remember when I first read the chapter when Kakashi uses the lightning cable and Guy uses Asakujaku to fight against the tail beasts, and I thought they were gonna die because that situation was very desperate for the characters. And that's why it was so satisfying when Naruto finally befriended Kurama and acquired KCM2 and the Kurama avatar and fought against those things. The same thing can be said for Madara. He is very scary, intimidating, and very charismatic, something Kabuto isn't at all. And his fight against the 5 Kage was so much more engaging than anything that happened in the Kabuto fight. The interesting bit that happens in the Kabuto fight happens after Kabuto's dealt with, when Itachi tells the truth to Sasuke and says he will always love him. That's the best part of that fight, and it doesn't involve Kabuto whatsoever. Kabuto's just there drooling in the Izanami world, whatever. The fight didn't have a very lasting impact. When people ask about, oh, hey, what's your favorite fight in Naruto or even in the War Arc, nobody's gonna say Itachi and Sasuke versus Kabuto because it just doesn't have that gravitas. It doesn't help at all that Kabuto doesn't really have a big of a connection with Itachi himself. You can argue, yeah, he was with Sasuke during 3 years in Orochimaru's hideout, helping him train, so they do have sort of a connection connection, but Kabuto was never this forefront character, so their connection is never really that established anyway. You could say that Sasuke was the man who took Orochimaru away from Kabuto, and that's his grudge against Sasuke, but when it comes to Itachi, we don't even see them interact before their fight. Maybe they had an interaction in the past that we just don't see in canon, but it's not enough. But I know a character that has Orochimaru's jutsus, Orochimaru's intimidation factor, an interesting connection with both Itachi and Sasuke, and Orochimaru's charisma that would have been a great pick to put instead of Kabuto in the War Arc. His name is Orochimaru. Why the hell is Kabuto a main antagonist in the war instead of Orochimaru? Orochimaru was a main villain in part 1, arguably the first big boss they've ever had to face. And he is delegated as just this absolute wimp in the War Arc. He turns quote-unquote good. We know Orochimaru is not truly good. He never will be good. But still, he feels so pathetic in the war. He's reduced to a joke character. He's used for comic relief many times. No, you shouldn't do that. And now Kabuto's supposed to be the big threat? That just doesn't make any sense. Imagine Orochimaru fighting Sasuke and Itachi with this godlike powers that Kabuto acquired, with a connection he shares with Itachi in the Akatsuki when Itachi destroyed him, and also he trained Sasuke for 3 years. They have a deep bond there. It's not a very good bond, but they do have a bond. Sasuke killing him, Orochimaru wanting revenge, and also how intimidating Orochimaru would be with those jutsus. It would have been a very emotional, high-stakes fight that involves one of the most beloved antagonists in the series. But instead, we get Kabuto. And for what? Sure, Kabuto gets some decent development during the fight. We get to know his backstory from the orphanage, how he became a spy, how Orochimaru found him, why he became the person that he is. And then Izanami is supposed to break that cycle, make him a better person, because he was never intended to be a bad person. Just bad things happen to him, yada yada yada. It's well done. Kabuto's backstory is fine, but sometimes you have to do some trade-offs in a story. Would it be better to develop Kabuto's backstory, making him a final boss in the War Arc, or would it be better to continue Orochimaru's development as a major threat and a great villain? I pick Orochimaru any day of the week. Kabuto just kind of falls in Orochimaru's position there. It's not even earned. If you wanted to do something like that, if you wanted to make Kabuto surpass Orochimaru in the story, and if that was the story you wanted to tell, that Kabuto was lost and the only way he could find himself was to try and become more powerful than Orochimaru, that being his character flaw, he needed way more screen time in the story before the War Arc. We needed to see how he went from being Kabuto, the guy nobody really respects or cares about, to being this character that can't fight against EMS Sasuke and Itachi. Like, we even question ourselves, how is this guy even keeping up with them? That doesn't make much sense. Now sure, Sage Mode is a big buff. Naruto and Itachi had to fight nerfed in the fight because they couldn't kill Kabuto, but still, it's a very big leap in power. And also, don't get me started, Itachi versus Kabuto is one of the worst fights in the series just because of Izanami. Izanami is the worst jutsu in the Naruto series. I'll probably make a video about that later in the future, but it's just a terrible, terrible jutsu, a terrible way to win the fight. Sure, it serves to change Kabuto and make him forget his old ways, becoming a better person, inheriting the orphanage in the end of the story, which is okay. It also gives Kabuto guidance to go and heal Sasuke when Sasuke was dying from Madara's stab wound, meaning that even when he was already dead, Itachi saved Sasuke literally from death, because without Izanami, Kabuto wouldn't go and heal Sasuke. But you could have accomplished all those things without using the worst Aspel in the story. I'm also not a fan of showing the backstory of the villain in the fight he's gonna be defeated in just before he gets defeated. That's exactly what they do to Kabuto. They do this all the freaking time in Demon Slayer. It's so annoying. Every time Tangerine is gonna slice through a devil there, the devil has the flashback about the life he had once he was human, and then Tangerine slashes through them and it's over. It's so bad because this character is gonna be done. You should have shown the flashbacks before he was done in the story, because now we don't really care anymore. Now, of course, Kabuto still has a couple of things to do in the story, like healing Sasuke and becoming the orphanage guy, but if we knew about Kabuto's backstory backstory before he was fighting against Itachi and Sasuke, then maybe we would have been more invested in that fight. Like, we get Obito's backstory in between parts 1 and 2. Like, when the time skip happens, we got that in the manga. We get Madara's backstory way before he becomes the Jinchuriki of the Ten Tails. We get Nagato's backstory way before he fights Naruto. And now you can say, well, but we didn't get Itachi's backstory before he fights Sasuke. Well, of course we didn't, because there was a plot twist. There's a difference. And we got Itachi's backstory from the villainous perspective of Sasuke way before their fight. So it's just after the fight that Sasuke finds out the whole truth about Itachi. But we knew what Itachi did, so we know the backstory. The important information was conveyed to the audience. Kabuto was such a meh character. He wasn't bad, but he wasn't good either. He was just there, being Orochimaru's lackey. He didn't have a backstory. We found out about his backstory way too late. But even if they had developed Kabuto's backstory before the final fight he has in the series, Orochimaru would have been 1,000 times better. Subscribe to this channel if you haven't done so already, like this video to help me out against the YouTube algorithm, and watch this video right here for more entertaining Naruto content. Thank you so much for watching.